In the quiet valley town of Eldahill, tucked beneath the arms of ancient hills and wrapped in the silence of forgotten time, lived a man no one really knew. The people called him Old Elijah, but nobody could say where he came from. He seemed to appear like the morning mist, always there, always quiet, always watching. His home sat on the farthest edge of the village, a crooked wooden shack with holes in the roof and walls that wept during rain. The chimney coughed more smoke than warmth, and the floor creaked like an old man's bones. He had no family, no title, no possessions worth envy. To many, he was just another ghost the village hadn't buried yet. But Elijah's worth was never in what he owned. It was in what he gave. Every morning, before the sun rubbed sleep from its eyes, Elijah walked through the center of Eldahill with a little basket in hand. Sometimes it carried bread he'd baked over weak firewood. Sometimes it held tea brewed from wild herbs. And sometimes it was just his smile, his gentle voice, and his time. He sat with beggars on cold stone steps. He helped elderly widows hang their laundry in the wind. He guided small children across slippery roads in winter, whispering stories of warmth and courage as their hands clung to his like tiny lifelines. He gave away the coat off his back when the nights bit with frost. He laid his only blanket over a homeless stranger curled up behind the chapel. And once, when he had only one coin left to his name, he handed it to a weeping mother outside the pharmacy, so her child could have medicine and another chance at life. And when people stopped him and asked, "Why, Elijah? Why do you give so much when you have so little?" he would look at them with eyes filled with peace and simply say, "Because love is the only thing that grows when you give it away." But not all hearts understood. Some villagers mocked him. "That old fool gives away what he can't afford. You can't fix your leaking roof with kindness. He's just pretending to be a saint." Even the children would imitate him, walking around with empty baskets, offering fake food and laughing as they bowed dramatically in jest. But Elijah never raised his voice, never scolded, never stopped. When the baker's shop caught fire, Elijah was the first to arrive, carrying buckets of water with trembling arms until the flames were tamed. When a boy broke his leg during a fall, it was Elijah who carried him miles to the village healer, his breath ragged but steady. Quietly, like roots growing beneath the surface, the village began to change. Kindness spread slowly, unnoticed, until the storm came. It began as a whisper, a warning on the wind. Snow was coming, they said, a blizzard the likes of which Eldahill hadn't seen in decades. But the townspeople shrugged it off. They were used to winter. Then the winds roared like beasts. The clouds collapsed. How bad could it be? And the snow came, angry, endless, suffocating. Roofs caved in under the weight. Trees snapped like dry bones. Power lines failed. The roads disappeared beneath 6 feet of ice and despair. Panic set in. People ran to the stores, only to find shelves empty. The rich packed their belongings and drove off, tires skidding on frozen roads. But Elijah stayed. He opened his fragile home to everyone who came, strangers, mothers with children, lost travelers, even those who once laughed at him. He lit fires using his old furniture. He boiled soup from leftover roots and herbs. When a baby burned with fever, Elijah walked barefoot through the storm, for miles across biting winds and frozen silence, just to knock on the door of an old healer on the hill. His body collapsed before he returned, found half buried in snow, but wrapped in his arms was a warm blanket he had used to shield a shivering orphan girl. He gave everything, his strength, his warmth, his life. When rescue teams finally broke through the ice days later, they weren't prepared for what they found. Not death, not silence, but life. Elijah's shack, barely fit for one, was packed with over 30 people. Families huddled close, fed and warm. Children wrapped in blankets, elders sipping warm broth, candles flickering on the windowsill. And in the center of it all, lay Elijah, unconscious but smiling, as if dreaming of something beautiful. News spread like wildfire. Reporters came. The mayor wept on camera. Donations poured in from places far beyond Eldahill. They rebuilt his home, turning it into a sanctuary for the homeless and the hurting, now called Elijah's refuge. And that little orphan girl, the one he carried through the storm? She was adopted by a family who had seen his story on the news, moved by the man who gave everything. But Elijah never sought attention. When he finally opened his eyes and they asked him, "Why did you do it?" he replied, "I just did what I hoped someone would do, if I were out there in the cold." Eldahill was never the same. People started helping each other. The children no longer mocked Elijah. They told his story in schools, drawing pictures of the kind man with the crooked smile and outstretched hands. And in every corner of the village, his spirit lived on, in every shared loaf of bread, every open door, every quiet act of compassion. Because one man, with nothing to his name, showed the world the power of a heart that refuses to stop caring. And so, dear listener, you don't need riches to be generous. You don't need titles to make a difference. You don't need strength to lift someone up. All you need is a heart that still believes in kindness, because sometimes, the person everyone ignores is the one who saves the world.